Hey everyone, welcome back to OnePageAhead Podcast, where I break down the most popular self-help books one chapter at a time so you can get the conversational lesson without reading a single page. This is season 1. We're talking about the book Atomic Habits, and in this specific chapter, in chapter 11, we get introduced to the third law, which is my favorite law. It is make it easy. And chapter 11 is also called Walking Slow, but never backwards. This is probably my favorite chapter so far, and I've said that for a couple different chapters already, but this one is the one that relates with me, and I think you the most. So I'm going to relate you to the book for a second here, and it is something that we all do. And if you don't do this, let me know. As humans, we try to plan for success, and a lot of times we will start planning, strategizing, laying things out, find the optimal, perfect idea or routine, whether that's the fastest way to lose weight, whether that's the fastest way, most effective way to create a business. Maybe it's a step-by-step procedure of winning new clients, getting a promotion, landing your dream job. But here's the problem. We're so focused on the planning aspect or the best approach that we forget or we don't take action. And James Clear in this chapter talks about the difference between motion versus action. And this was my key takeaway. Motion versus action. They sound pretty similar, but they're very different. So motion is all about planning and strategizing, putting all your information organized, putting your ducks in a row, feeling safe about the next steps. For example, when I was trying to start my first business, I looked at what do I need to get, how do I need to get incorporated? What type of bank accounts do I need? What type of niche do I have? Who am I marketing to? And all these things. And they're all great things, but the problem is they don't produce any results. Action, on the other hand, is actually doing the step. It is submitting forms to get incorporated. It is opening up a bank account. It is playing around with Facebook ads. Or let's talk about losing weight. It is actually eating healthy, not planning the meal. It is actually going to the gym, not planning to go to the gym or writing out a workout routine. Those are all important things, but taking action is actually performing a task or action that will have some level of outcome. And I think that's the key word there. Motion doesn't produce outcome on its own. Action does. Though they're both important, sometimes we can get bogged down on focusing on the motion when it doesn't actually produce any progress, because as humans, we're risk adverse. Most people are afraid to fail. And when we procrastinate through planning and strategizing, we're just looking for a way to delay failure. As you know by now, I run a tech sales team. I've been in sales for a long time. And something that I hear a lot of from my peers and also some of my account executives as well is I hear the phrase, I'm talking to, I'm planning to, and usually I'll start poking holes at where the action has taken place. Because as humans, we don't want to fail. We would rather not lose something than to gain something significant. This is where I want to shift your mindset. And this chapter has really helped me understand you and I don't want to just be planning. What's more important is practicing. You know, the habit scorecards we talked about where we wrote down every habit that we have and the routine that we have, the objects that we have relationships to in our environment that we want to be the architect of our environment. Now that we understand it, we don't have to spend any more time planning. We don't have to plan out every task, every feature, every possible scenario so that we don't fail. You just need to practice it. You just need to take action, which is the first step to the third law of making it easy. It is you need to get your reps in. Repetition. Someone who is working out won't get the results if all they did was watch videos and learn about how to build muscle, how to be more effective at the gym. They have to actually work out. They have to put in the repetition day in, day out, to put their knowledge into practice. And usually the ones that are more consistent at the gym are the ones that see more results than the ones that talk about the gym. And it is the same thing when it goes to finance. Usually the ones that actually put money and invest and learn and fail and put the reps in are better than the ones that read all about it and in hindsight live in the financial past. So that brings into the question, how long does it take to form a new habit? And to get to the answer to that question, we really have to understand, at least from this chapter, how our brain works. Our brain gets progressively more automated when we repeat tasks and behaviors. That's no surprise to you because we've talked about this in the past and we should know that by now, right? But in this chapter, it layers on how as we progressively repeat something and practice something, our brain structure actually changes. And so some of the studies that are done that should be no surprise to you and I is that some of the world-renowned musicians, I'm talking about like instruments, okay? So like a pianist or a person that plays the violin, I'm not sure what they're called, I apologize, or an athlete, all right? It's basketball, for example. Who's the greatest player of all time? I'm going to let you decide in the comments there. Those people that I just talked about, their brains are developed in a different way and they have more developed portions of the brain compared to an average person. And it is just like a muscle, the more that we train and do something, it activates that part of our brain over and over again until it becomes automatic. You and I already have seen videos online, though, that people do things over and over again, and they almost seem like a machine about it. We're like, how do you have that level of accuracy when you do your job? And it's because there's a clear physical change in their brain through repetition. The example that I gave last chapter is tying my shoe. At first, you and I both learned to tie our shoes. What is the most effective way to tie our shoes? And then later on, we skip the problem solving phase and we go right into the solution without thinking too much about it. And that only happens if we tie our shoe more and more often. And in this chapter, we learn about a very special word, and the word's automacity. Automacity is the ability to perform a behavior without thinking about each step. Again, we're putting words into context. And that's what I love about this book, because you and I know most of these things, but to actually have words and structure organized, we archive that in our brains so that at some point we understand it more clear, and then we can layer on the new things that we learned and the things that we've learned in the past. So that goes back to the question of, well, how long does it take to build a new habit? And here's the kicker, all right? That shouldn't be the question that you and I both should be asking ourselves. The question that we should ask ourselves is, how many does it take to build a new habit? And the how many is, how many times do we have to repeat and be repetitive about something until it becomes automatic and until our brain fully understands it, and then we could skip the problem solving and right into the solutioning. And I'm going to tell you a really quick example that's gonna stick. All right, so I started learning how to cut my hair earlier this year. If you look back at some of my videos here for the past couple months, it's gotten a little bit better and it's gotten a little bit worse. But the thing about cutting hair, it isn't so much that I've cut it a number of times. It is the frequency in which I cut my hair. Check out my fade. It's been a few days now. Maybe I'll make a tutorial video on how I cut my hair too at some point. But that's not the point. All right. The point is, how often do I cut my hair? At first, I started off cutting my hair once a month, once every 3 weeks. And every single time, it took me a long time. It took me like 3 hours to cut my hair. And you're probably thinking, well, what a waste of time. All right, sure. But because the frequency was so spread out, every time I cut my hair, it felt like a new thing again. And then what I started doing is I shortened the frequency and I started cutting every 2 weeks. And then I did a touch up every week and a half. And the constant motion of how to use a razor blade got better and better for me through repetition. And it is through frequency, not the amount of times. I could be cutting my hair once a month for 3 years, or I could be cutting my hair twice a month for 6 months. And I will be better twice a month for 6 months. And this talks about just that in this book. The rate at which you perform your task is more important than the number of times that you perform the task. And you will get automacity as soon as you can string along successful attempts and outcomes. Now, that being said, this brings us to the end of this chapter, and I want you to take this away, as I will as well. It is more important that we take action and we continue to take action in a frequency that is going to give us the practice and the repetitions that is needed in order for us to achieve automacity. Now, you must be wondering, well, how do I do that? What's the easiest way? What is the most effective way? And let me tell you, I don't know, because that's what it says. The chapters to follow will show you how to do just that. So that is the end of chapter 11. It's called Walking Slow But Never Backwards. I hope that you enjoyed this explanation as much as I understand this chapter. I forgot to say this at the beginning. If it is different from how someone else interpreted it, good on them. However, if you want a copy of this book and you want to purchase it, there's a link in the description below. It is fantastic to go through it and highlight the different things that I took away, and you will take different things away. And as it's the same as when you watch a TV show or movie, usually the second time over, you spot the little nuggets that will change your perspective on things. This is my first time around this book. And if I haven't addressed it already, I'm in a hotel room. I'm on a business trip right now. So I'm filming on this iPhone and I've got this little mic over here and I'm doing the best that I can because I am not looking for perfection. I know I need to take action as I continue to make these chapters. Chapter 11. This is my 11th episode. I feel like I'm getting better at reading and getting better at takeaways. Also getting better at talking in front of a camera and a microphone as well. That being said, if you enjoyed this journey, if you learn anything new, if you just feel good learning a book without having to read it, hit the like button. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what you're thinking. And I'd like to thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter, which is chapter 12. Taking a quick look here, and the chapter's called The Law of Least Effort. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.